everybody? Welcome to Zone Defense. We talk all things NBA and NFL. Be sure to follow us on Spotify at Zone Defense Podcast, on Twitter at Zone Defense Pod. Hit that subscribe button down below because it really helps out our channel a lot. Also, drop a comment and let us know who you've got making your all NBA teams. Today we will be doing another edition of the Zone Defense Basketball Hour. How's it going, Chris?
It's going well, Drew. Glad we're gonna get into this here. And it's been a couple weeks since we've done an NBA episode, but with the playoff push really dying down here, or really coming to the home stretch, it's gonna be really interesting to see. There's still a lot to be determined, so I'm really excited to watch these next couple of days of NBA basketball, and then also I'm really excited for the playoffs this year, man. I think it's gonna be one heck of a playoffs. I think it's just gonna be really intense.
Yeah, with the play-in added into it, it should be that should add another layer to the whole playoff. It's either intense already, so that should make things even more intense. I know typically at this point of the season, it's pretty boring and there's not a lot to talk about, but these last few weeks have been super entertaining. Definitely the most entertaining last half of the season that I can remember in terms of NBA in recent memory, at least. So I think the play-in, I know LeBron and Luka and other people are crying about how the play-in sucks and it's stupid, but I think overall it's a really good win for the league, and hopefully the playoffs will be good too, because there's so much parity this year. There's not a clear favorite, so it should be really awesome. But I know we each have two topics to bring to the table, and then we're also going to reveal our all NBA teams at the end of the episode. So why don't you get into your first topic here to start us off?
Yeah, so I'll start with my first topic, and I think it's one of the more important topics, or just, I think it's one of the bigger storylines of this entire season, and that's the fact that the Knicks are finally making their first playoff since 2013. Just a heck of a season from this team. Really good defensively. I mean, Tom Thibodeau, in my opinion, totally deserves to win Coach of the Year. I think he is the clear guy to win, in my opinion. And I think he's obviously made the world of a difference. I don't think this roster is anything special personally. I know obviously Julius Randle has taken, and we may talk about him later a little bit, has taken massive step forward in his game. But I think a lot of that has to do with Tom Thibodeau's really good defensive intensity, his focus on defense, his focus on winning. And he's obviously made the world of a difference for this team. So, I mean, like I said, you got RJ Barrett taking a step forward, Emmanuel quickly coming in, being really solid. The acquisition of Derrick Rose has been a huge help, boost to their bench. And then obviously Julius Randle, and then the rest of their starting lineup being good defensively as well is really, it's made a total 180 for this team since last season, one of the worst teams in the league. We're able to get Obi Toppin pretty early in the draft, who hasn't really done a ton this season, but they've still been able to find ways to really overperform what their expectations were. I know me and you, when we did the preview, we were basically like, oh, the Knicks suck. Let's not talk about them for too long because it doesn't matter. There's a lot more interesting teams in them. We were definitely two of many that were extremely wrong about this team. And a team that's won almost 40 games has a chance to get to 40 by the end of the season. I'm just blown away by how well this team has performed this season. But, hey, just kudos to everybody for making these massive improvements. I think Randall may end up winning most improved player as well, which would be a well-deserved award for him. And then obviously, like I said, Tibbs with his Coach of the Year as well. So, just a great season for the Knicks. Let's see what they do in the playoffs, man. I'm very curious. But if you had anything to add to that, let's hear it, man.
No, I mean, you touched on a lot of really good points there. I mean, the Knicks, I remember, like you said, we trashed on them and the Cavs the most, I would say. And then after a couple weeks into the season, the Cavs and the Knicks were like the two best teams in the East. It was like, oh man, we're idiots. But I think I remember I said in one of the early episodes something like, just wait and see. Both of them are gonna tail off. They're both gonna collapse. They're both gonna fall off. And that's exactly what happened with the Cavs. They're almost as bad as the Pistons now. With the Knicks, I mean, we just kind of kept waiting for them to fall off. They had like some stretches there where it looked like, okay, here it's finally happening. But no, they've been able to hold the fort. It sucks because they lost a really good game against the Lakers the other night. And they're 6-4 in their last 10, but that one loss, because of how crunched down the East is, dropped them from the 4 seed to the 6 seed. And I think I think the Hawks are a great team, but I think if the Knicks want to win a playoff series and get out of the first round, I think they got to play the Hawks. I don't love their chances against the Bucks, and I don't love their chances against the Heat. I think the Heat would be a great series. The championship pedigree they showed last year and Jimmy Butler, I just don't love that in terms of their playoff chances. So, like you said, they have a couple now. They're tied with the Heat but they lose the tiebreaker, so they're six. And they're only a half a game back of the Hawks for the four spot. So even though there's only two games left, there's still a lot that could happen here and shake things up. So hopefully the Knicks. Been a really great story. I agree with you. I think Thibodeau is going to win the Coach of the Year. He should win the Coach Williams with Phoenix has a really good case as well. If either of those guys get it, they're both very well deserved. And the scary thing too is that this is obviously a really big market, a lot of. I think I saw something the other day about how the players and the agents and everyone around the league has a better opinion of the Knicks now, like it was back in the 80s and the 90s. So hopefully, man, they can get some big stars here soon to kind of complement their already really strong young core with Randall, with Quickly, and even Obi Toppin, who, like you said, has been, and RJ Barrett, obviously, but Obi Toppin's been pretty disappointing this year, to say the least. So hopefully maybe he can take another step next year, and that's another good player. I mean, this could be the beginning of years of success for the Knicks. Who knows? But obviously, it's great for Knicks fans. The Knicks, I mean, they're on national TV all the time. So it's nice that now that they're actually a good team, so they're nice to watch rather than the crap with the Kristaps Porzingis teams and whatever the heck was out there last year. So yeah, it's a really, really great story. I think probably the best story of the year. And yeah, I'm right there with you. It's going to be really nice to see. Hopefully, they win a playoff game, and it's really nice to see playoff basketball back in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, yeah, you made some very good points there, and it's just like I said, like we both said, crazy story, and I really agree with your Cavs point. We both kind of put them in that tier where it's like, oh yeah, they're not going to do this for very long. This is just a fun story for the first 15, 20 games, and obviously they're the Cavs, one of the worst teams in the league. This was clearly a mirage. They got off to a hot start for a few games, but the Knicks clearly was not. And, that's the difference between, a good coach and a not so good coach. And I think they got one of the best in the league in Tibbs. He's been awesome for their defensive purposes, like we keep saying. He plays the starters a ton of minutes too, which is, it's always something that he does. It may end up affecting them in the playoffs potentially with some fatigue, but, they got a deep roster. So, Derrick Rose off the bench, like I said earlier, has been awesome for them and will continue to be awesome in terms of giving them a big scoring punch. So, and that trade was honestly maybe the best move of the entire season for any team, in my opinion. I think that trade was a huge act, and they were hovering around 500 kind of going into the trade deadline. They made this deal with Detroit, didn't really have to give up much to get him, and he's been awesome since they got him. So I really think that was really a move that went under the radar right away, but has made a huge impact in terms of them winning games. He's the guy that goes out there and closes games for them. So just a huge move for them, and he's going to come up big in the playoffs, I think, in a game or two. But I do agree, if they run into the Heat, I don't love their chances. If they play the Hawks, I think they win that series. So very curious to see who they end up getting matched up against, but I think the Hawks would be the ideal matchup.
Yeah, I think if they play the Bucks, that's what they're it's slated to play right now. I think we're talking 5-6 games at most. Probably could be a sweep potentially. I don't think it's gonna be a sweep. I think the Knicks are too good. The defense is too good to get swept by the Bucks, but they're not going to win that series. The Heat, I mean, I think that could be a really, really competitive series. But I am with you. I think the Heat would win. The Hawks, though, again, I think that'd be a really competitive series, and I would give the edge to the Knicks. So we'll just have to kind of see these last couple games how the standings shake out. But regardless, I think it's going to be a really entertaining playoff series throughout. And it starts with the play-in, and I can kind of transition into my point here. So the Knicks, as you said, they're locked in into the spots, but now the play-in for the Eastern Conference, that's where things get a little more interesting still. So the Celtics, they lost last night to the Cavs, just an awful loss to a brutal team, as we just got done saying, in Cleveland. They're only a game and a half up on the Hornets and the Pacers, who are both currently tied for the 8th spot. So the Celtics most likely going to keep that 7th spot, but you never know. Hornets and Pacers, that 8 spot's very much up for grabs. I mean, if you get that 8 spot, you only got to win 1 game. If you're stuck in the 9 spot, then you got to win 2 games. So that'll be
Mhm.
interesting to see. The Pacers also, we didn't touch on it, but last week came out that their coach Nate Bjorkgren is kind of a jerk. So he's probably going to get fired at the end of the year. So you got him playing for his job. You got a lot of drama, storylines. TJ Warren asked to be traded and then elected to get season-ending surgery rather than play for this guy because he hated him back when he was in Phoenix. And then you got the Wizards too, who have unfortunately lost back-to-back games to the Atlanta Hawks. But they are most likely going to get that final play-in spot in the 10. They're a game and a half back at getting the 8 or 9 seed, so who knows there. But it sucks for the Wizards because they were like a super hot team. Westbrook broke the triple-double record. Congrats to him. But they've also lost some games here, so they're most likely going to have to be in that 9-10 matchup. So Hornets Pacers, two teams that we probably didn't imagine us talking about this much at this late in the season, but that's where a lot of the attention is going to be here for the East play-in.
Yep.
So do you have anything you want to touch on with that play-in matchup as we enter the final weekend of the season?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I'd like to talk about how the Boston Celtics have just been super underwhelming this season. They're on a 4-game losing streak in one of the most pivotal stretches of the season, so just not good work for them in this. They really have been very unimpressive this season. It's been a lot to do with injuries. I know right now they literally have Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Time Lord, Kemba. All of them are out of the lineup right now. It's literally just Tatum and a bunch of bona fide scrubs pretty much playing for them right now. So, but even in that case, I mean, you shouldn't be losing to the Cavs this late in the season. I think that would need to be a must-win game. They couldn't get it done. Now they're going to have to fight through the play-in, and I don't know if they're going to get out of it, man. I mean, you got the Wizards. I think they're going to make some noise for sure. They're going to end up probably, in my opinion, playing the Pacers in that matchup for the 9-10. I think they'll win that game. I think the Celtics should beat the Hornets, but it depends on who's honestly in the lineup because I think Jaylen Brown's up for the season now, so
Yeah.
he won't be in. So the Hornets definitely got an opportunity to win that game. And then I think I would probably take the Wizards over them if the Celtics do either the Hornets or the Celtics. I think the Wizards are going to be the team that ends up with the 7 seed. That is my opinion, or the 8 seed. I think they'll be able to make it into that final spot. I think they're a team I have a lot of respect for, and I really like. I mean, they started off so horribly. I know we were trashing them for a couple months of how bad they were, and then it was basically just Russell Westbrook decided I'm going to take over this team, and that's what he's done the last couple months. He's been absolutely incredible. I know they've dropped some games recently, but this is still a team I do not want to see in the playoffs or the play-in. And to me, they're the most exciting team out of those bottom 4 seeds
Yeah.
or the guys that are 7 through 10 fighting for the playoff spot. I think they're the most interesting team, and they actually have a chance to make some noise in the playoffs if they get there. I know they'll be playing the Sixers. That's going to be a tough matchup, but I think they win a game or two in that series. I don't think it's just some pushover series where the Sixers blow them out in 4 straight games. I think the Wizards have enough firepower to win a game or two in that series with Beal and Westbrook, and I think those two are playing at a very high level right now. So very excited to watch, see what the Wizards can do, see if the Celtics maybe can turn it around or the Hornets and Pacers can figure something out. But I am very interested to see what this final battle goes down to.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be interesting to see because the Wizards, like you said, they got the firepower, but Bradley Beal has been banged up here recently, hasn't played. Hopefully, he'll be ready for the play-in, but you don't love to see that. The Pacers, they got. I know you said they're probably going to lose to the Wizards, and I do. I think I agree with you on that. But they got this whole like, hey, it's not the players, it's the coach. He's the problem. So now they're playing harder. They've played a little bit better recently. The Hornets, they've kind of fallen off. When LaMelo came back, I thought that'd be the spark they needed, but they're still missing Gordon Hayward. So they're an interesting team. And then the Celtics, too, I know they're not with Jaylen Brown, but maybe they get some of these guys back, and Jason Tatum just drags them into the 7 or 8 spot. Who knows? I mean, you got teams here. I'm with you. The Wizards are the team that I'll be rooting for because I think they are the most entertaining. I think they're the team that could give a team like the Sixers the most trouble in a first round matchup. I think the Celtics, for whatever reason, it seems like every other year, like they're good and they're bad and they're good and then they're bad, and now they're bad again because they made the Eastern Conference Finals last year. And the Hornets and Pacers, I just don't believe in them like I do the Wizards. So it'll be interesting to see. It's the first year we're going to have this matchup. I know it's disappointing that teams like the Bulls and the Raptors aren't making it because no offense to our Charlotte or Indiana listeners, but I think Chicago and Toronto has a little more juice than the Charlotte or Indiana teams. That's just my opinion. But they both really disappointed, especially Chicago too. They made those big trades. We were all like, "Oh yeah, all in the Bulls, baby," and they just sucked. So,
Yeah.
and the Raptors full on tanked, bench like they kept resting their players all the time, and so Charlotte, Indiana, credit to them, they made it. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just really excited to see these games. First year with this format. Like I said, I know some people don't love it, but I think it's been really good for the league overall, and it should be. It's a lot more excitement here to the end of the season, like I said before.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it was a great format switch. I know not everybody loves it. Some of the players dislike it, but I think it really opens up a lot of opportunities for this league to get a little bit more competitive down the stretch there. And we'll have to see how it goes. Maybe one of these teams can win a first round playoff matchup and really make it even more incentive to get one of those 7-8 spots. You never know what's going to happen. But I'll jump into my other point, and this is, obviously this team is a team that I love to talk about, and that is the Portland Trailblazers. But I think in terms of a non-biased approach, I think this is one of the most interesting teams as of right now. They were fading fast, lost, I believe, what was it, 9 of 11 at one point a couple weeks ago. They looked like a team that be on the may end up even outside of the top 8 seeds potentially with how
Yeah,
bad they were playing. They lost back-to-back games to the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies were only like a game back from the 7th spot, and it looked like an absolute disaster. And then something happened. They went on this road trip, and they just started bombing teams. They've been doing it for like a couple weeks now. They just started absolutely destroying everybody pretty much that they've played. They've beaten the Lakers. They just took down the Jazz. I know that obviously they're missing Donovan Mitchell. And also Mike Conley, but still a very good team. So, and it was a team that was playing very hard in that game as well. So they were able to beat them. They've really just flipped a switch over these last 10 or so games. That I think looks like they pretty much won 9 of 10, and they've really turned it around. So going into the playoffs right now, they hold the 5 seed, and they would end up playing the Nuggets. It looks like if they end up with the 5 seed, they got to take down Phoenix tonight, and then Denver on Sunday, which are going to be 2 huge games for them. Obviously, 2 really tough teams. This is going to be a good test to see if they can actually hang with these big dog teams in the playoffs. They can take down those 2 teams with their newfound hot streak they've gone into. But it always seems like this team gets hot at the right time going into the playoffs. Last year in the bubble, they were probably the best team of the 8-game stretch, and then they made it. They didn't make it an easy series for the Lakers to win. They had some, obviously Dame got injured in the series, but they fought hard in that series, and they were able to take a game out of it. So a team that seems to find a way to figure it out going right before into the playoff stretch. And I think that has a lot to do with the guard leadership of Dame and CJ. I think both guys are playing at a really high level right now. You're getting some production from Yusuf Nurkic as well in terms of his defense really stepping up. He's starting to really get a lot more blocks. He's playing a few more minutes a game too. I think that's making a big difference. Norman Powell seems to be fitting in a little better as well. They've really cut down this rotation to 8 guys as well, but they only got Melo, Simons, and Cantor coming off the bench. Everybody else is basically just taking a back seat, playing very little minutes. And I think that's really made a big difference in them going on this massive winning streak they've gone on. And I know not every single team they've played on this winning streak has been some crazy good team. They beat the Nets, Boston. They did lose to Atlanta. That was their one loss. They beat the Lakers, the Spurs, who are fighting for a playoff spot, and then the Jazz as well. So and also the Grizzlies as well. They destroyed the Grizzlies early in this winning streak as well. So a very good stretch of basketball played by the Blazers. Their defense has been a lot better as well. They've held a couple teams in that to low 100s, even a team under 100, which is pretty impressive in today's NBA, and very impressive for a team that gives up what feels like 200 points every single night. So there's been some rumors about Terry Stotts getting fired. I don't think those have died down at all. We'll have to see what this team does in the playoffs. I think they would have to win a round or 2 for him to keep his job. But this is a very good stretch of basketball they're playing right now, and they've got two massive tests coming up against the Suns and the Nuggets. If they want that 5 seed and they want to play the Nuggets, which definitely gives them a chance to move out of the first round if they play the Nuggets, I think they match up pretty well with them, especially without Jamal Murray playing as well. I think they've definitely got a shot to win that series. But if they run into the Clippers, if they fall back down to the 6 and run into the Clippers, I think they have absolutely no chance of winning that series. So they really need to stay on that 5-4-5 line, but we'll have to see how it goes. But Drew, what do you think about this recent run that the Blazers have had? Am I just a homer for thinking that they maybe are figuring it out, flipping a switch, or do you think this is for real?
No, I don't think you're being a homer at all. I mean, speaking as someone who completely wrote them off a few weeks ago and thought they were done, I thought they were play-in fodder. I was expecting them to probably lose to Golden State in their first play-in game and then probably be the 8th seed and have to play the Jazz. But they've really turned it around. They flipped the switch. I think they had a players-only meeting, and like Carmelo and Dame and I think CJ talked and we're like, hey guys, what's going on here? Let's get this thing under control. And sometimes those work, sometimes they just create more issues. And for them, it worked. I mean, ever since, like you rattled off there, they've won 9 of their last 10, and that was really right after that meeting. So I think if they keep us the 5 seed, I mean, I think they could go on a similar run to the Western Conference Finals like we saw 2 years ago. Because Denver, obviously, they've looked really good still. Michael Porter Jr. has been playing out of his mind, even though they don't have Jamal Murray. However, I still think with as good as Portland's playing, I think that's a very winnable series. And then if they win that, then they're most likely going to have to play the winner of the 1-8 matchup, which, in my opinion, will most likely be the Jazz versus the Warriors. Which, again, Jazz, without Donovan Mitchell, they kind of always falter in the playoffs. I know they've been really good this year, but you never know with them. And then the Warriors, too. If they knock off the Jazz and play the Blazers, I think the Blazers are capable of beating them. So the roadmap is there, as I like to always say, for the Blazers to make it the Western Conference Finals, and then have to play probably a Clippers or a Lakers or even a Suns. But by that point, who knows? Maybe LeBron will be injured. Maybe AD's injured again. Maybe Kawhi's hurt. Maybe PG's hurt. And the Suns, I mean, they're beatable. So you never know. I mean, who knows? I mean, they're peaking at the right time. I don't want to get your hopes up and your excitement too much up that they're going to go on a finals run here, but it's definitely trending in the right direction. And I think it's very, very important for them to keep the 5 seed, because I think a team right behind them that's currently in 6 in the Mavericks, I think they're in a very similar spot as the Blazers. If the Mavericks are able to get the 5 seed, I think they could go on a Western Conference Finals run, maybe even sneak into the finals. Very, very important for the Blazers to keep that 5 spot, because it could be the difference between going on a long playoff run, potentially saving Terry Stotts' job, to losing in the first round once again. So, yeah, I don't want to. I was going to say it's a great time to be a Blazers fan like you, but it's probably an anxious time to be a Blazers fan. But it's definitely an entertaining time to be a Blazers fan, I guess,
Yes.
to say the least. So, yeah, they're definitely one of the hottest teams in the league right now. One of the teams that's most fun to watch at the moment too, just because there's so much writing. Like I said, with the Stott stuff, there's rumors maybe CJ is going to get traded if they don't turn things around here. So yeah, them keeping that 5 seed could really be the difference between them completely blowing it up in the offseason or going on a deep playoff run.
Yeah.
So really interested to watch them.
Me as well. Obviously, as a huge Portland fan, it is. Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, it's a win-win situation, though. If they end up getting bounced in the first round, Stotts will probably get fired, which I'm okay with. And then CJ, I would be okay with him getting traded, because I've really, I know they've gone on a big winning streak, but it feels like the dude just doesn't know how to pass. I know his average is like 4 assists a game. It just doesn't feel like it. Feels like he's in shoot first mode from the moment he touches the ball. And I don't know. I mean, sometimes it feels like he doesn't fit with the offense as well as he should. So I mean, if he ends up getting traded, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But this is also a team that I think is still potentially built to make a deep playoff run if they can get hot in the playoffs. They're going to be a tough out. If Dame is on, they're going to be one of the hardest teams to beat in the league, and he's playing at an extremely high level again right now. The last couple of weeks, he's been an absolute 30-point machine. So hopefully he keeps that up going into the playoffs. You got a really big test against the Suns tonight, who they have not played good against at all in their 2 matchups against. games on TNT, I will be tuning in with very eager eyes in this game. This is a huge test for them, so I'm excited for it. But Drew, let's hear your last topic, and then we can get into our all NBA teams.
Well, what I was going to say though is we're talking the Blazers up, and by the time this episode goes out, which will be after the game tonight, they're probably going to get pounded by Phoenix and they'll end up in the play-in or something crazy. So,
Yeah, most likely.
yeah, after all that, us hyping them up so much. But my final point. So I briefly wanted to mention real quick. I am so done with Luka Doncic is whining and is crying and his technical fouls. I'm just done with it. So I'm not. This isn't my final point, but I just wanted to get that off my chest real quick. It really he's a good player, but for me at least, it takes away from his enjoyment. The enjoyment I get from watching him play the game because he's a really good player, obviously him crying and whining about every freaking foul call and throwing baby tantrums every time. It's just really just I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I hope he gets suspended, so maybe that'll teach him a lesson. He'll be better for the years to come, but I'm done with it. Anyway, that's not my final point. My final point is a team that we have talked about in a positive I think we talked about them in a very negative light, then a very positive light, then a very negative light. And now I'm talking about them in a positive light once again because this team, man, you count them out every single time. And as soon as you're like, this team's done, they're one of the worst teams in the league. They're not going to do anything. They surprise you. They win 7 of their last 10. They win 2 in a row right now, and that's the Sacramento freaking Kings, man. I mean, what is this team's deal? Like, the Pelicans knock out the Spurs and sneak into the play-in. You never know. Who knows? They're eliminated. They have played awful. They've played way well below their all season long, and they're officially eliminated now. But the Kings, I mean, they have just keep pounding, and they're 2 games back right now behind the Spurs. Both them and the Spurs have 3 games left. The Spurs have to play the Knicks, and then they play the Suns twice, while the Kings have to play the Grizzlies twice, and then the Jazz. So I would say pretty equally difficult schedules. If not, the Kings might have a slightly easier because they have played the Grizzlies twice, and the Spurs to play the Suns twice. It's in play, and that's something that I did not think was going to happen. DeLon Wright, I mean, if you haven't been watching Kings, I don't blame you, but DeLon Wright has been just playing out of his freaking mind. Like, what is happening? When they made that trade, I was just like, why are they doing this? This doesn't make any sense. But DeLon Wright is just really well. Terrence Davis had a really nice game the other night. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, they're playing well. Luke Walton, similar position as Terry Stotts. He's probably going to get fired at the end of the year because I don't think they're going to sneak into the play-in. But there's still a chance. There's still a chance. It's just super surprising. And who knows? Maybe they sneak into the 10 seed. They play the Grizzlies in the first round of the play-in. Maybe they win a game. Who knows? I mean, that's just nuts. The fact that we're even talking about the Kings at this point in the season, having a chance to be in the play-in is something I did not think was going to happen. I don't think, like I said, I don't think they're probably going to get to the play-in, but I feel like they just deserve some kind of deserve to be talked about because of how well they played. I feel like recently, at least, I feel like it's kind of gone under the radar because several teams in their position definitely would have, and maybe for good reason, should just tank the season, get a better draft pick. But the Kings haven't done that. They've continued to play hard, and who knows? Maybe they'll be rewarded with a play-in spot. But if you don't have anything to talk about with the Kings, that's fine. But I just wanted to bring them up because they're one. I love De'Aaron Fox. I know he's been kind of banged up recently, but they're one of my teams that I like to follow, and I just wanted to give them a
Right.
shout out because they have been playing better recently.
Look, and they got a bunch of guys that have been out for extended periods of time. You haven't had Fox, you haven't had Heald for the whole time, you haven't even had Halliburton for all these games as well. So they've been missing
Yeah,
even Barnes as well. So they've been missing guys pretty much this entire stretch, but they just continue to find ways to win games. And it also has a little bit to do with the fact that the San Antonio Spurs are one of, if not the coldest team in the league right
yeah.
now. They have been on a
They beat the
spiral.
Bucks though. They
They
destroyed the
did.
Bucks,
They
which is
did beat the
random,
Bucks,
but
which was crazy. But in this stretch, they just have not been able to beat
yeah,
anybody. They lost back-to-back games against Utah. Uh, they lost to Portland, Brooklyn, Philly, and this is
they
a
have a
tough.
brutal
They've
schedule
had a
too.
brutal schedule, and it doesn't go anywhere. That isn't going to change for these last 3 games they got. They got New York on the schedule tonight, and then they get back-to-back games against Phoenix, which that will probably. I mean, maybe Phoenix will have locked up a playoff spot, so maybe they will not play all their guys, but that's still, no matter what,
Yeah,
not an easy matchup for them. So, I mean, there's definitely a shot that the the Kings end up sneaking in, but they also play against their schedule isn't that much easier. They got the Grizzlies in back-to-back games who are going to be playing extremely hard that they need to win
And
games.
they've been
And
playing.
then
They've
they
been playing really well recently too. Aside from that
right,
little blip against the Pistons where they lost for some reason,
right.
they've been playing good too.
And then they also run into the Jazz, who could be benching guys, but still not an easy team to beat. So both teams have tough schedules down the stretch. But if the Kings can win all three and the Spurs drop all three, then the Kings will end up sneaking into the play-in. Very interesting stuff there. Extremely surprising, and I didn't think it was anywhere near possible a couple weeks ago. But they are still alive. They outlasted the Pelicans, which is extremely impressive. The
Yeah,
Pelicans have been one of, if not the most disappointing teams in the league. They have been absolutely trash this year. So
and
it's
they've had
impressive.
injuries too. They've had injuries too recently, but they've been disappointing throughout the year. And that's another guy, SVG, Stan Van Gundy. I think he could be out of a job soon too. But
Yeah, yeah,
we'll have to wait and
definitely
see.
should be out of a job very soon because he's been trash this year, and I think pretty much everybody's ready for him to be gone. But you know, the Kings again, been very surprising that they're still in the race right now, but I still think Luke Walton has been a major problem this year. This team has been so on and off throughout the season where they win 7
Yeah,
games in a row, lose 14 in a row. It feels like almost they just
yeah,
haven't had any
crazy.
consistency whatsoever. Similarly to the Pelicans, have had zero consistency. And, it's, I mean, if they make the play in, maybe they'll find a way to sneak themselves in the playoffs. But I don't think they're going to have De'Aaron Fox for it because he's still on COVID protocol right now, so he would have to clear that to be able to play, and I don't know if he's going to do that in time. So without him, they have no chance to. With him, you never know. I mean, it's there's a possibility crazier things have happened than the Kings getting the 8 seed, but it's a very very crazy situation that they're still in the race.
No offense to the Spurs though, but like, if the Kings stuck in and De'Aaron Fox is able to play, I mean, what's better than a one-game play-in where you got De'Aaron Fox dueling against John Morant? I mean, that is just awesome. Two guys who I feel like go under the radar a lot, in the NBA, getting like primetime media coverage, and that'd be great. But similar to the Blazers, we're talking the Kings up right now. They're probably going to get plowed by Memphis tonight, and they won't make the uh, make the play in. But I don't know who holds the tie. I think San Antonio holds the tiebreaker too. I believe. I don't know for sure,
They
but
would have had to win. I
um,
know that the Kings won their last matchup, but I can vent that right now for a second if you have anything else to talk about.
no, that was my one question because it's possible that the Kings could lose one game as long as they go 2-1 and they'd be tied with the Spurs as long as the Spurs lose all three
Yes,
games.
the
Um,
Spurs, the Kings hold the tiebreaker against the
okay.
Spurs. They won 2 of 3.
So if the Spurs go 0-3 and the Kings go 2-1, then I believe the Kings would get the tiebreaker and are able, as long as the Spurs lose all three, which is very possible. The Kings not likely, um, but it'd be fun. It'd be fun. I don't think it is the Kings. I believe are the longest playoff drought in entirety of American professional sports at the moment. And I don't think making the play-in would break that. They'd have to actually make the playoffs.
Yeah,
But anyway, it gives some buzz to Sacramento, which they haven't had in a very, very long time. But
and they actually do not hold the tiebreaker. My apologies. I
never
read that
mind.
wrong, but they still have a shot. You never know.
Yeah, they still got that means they got to go 3-0, and the Spurs got to go 0-3. So we'll just have to wait and see. But it should be entertaining. I definitely was not. If you would have told me, months ago, hey, Spurs and Kings, you're going to be really invested in these two teams down the stretch. Spurs are another team that we completely trashed. I remember in our previews talking about how boring they were, and they've actually been kind of solid throughout the year. So, yeah, just really looking forward to that. Both the West East play-in should be really fun, but I think that's it for the topics that we want to do. We're going to unveil our all NBA teams for this year. So Chris, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, the All NBA teams are extremely difficult. It's definitely a fine line between these different teams. I thought guard was an extremely hard position to go through. Definitely, there's going to be some differences in our list, but I'll just start with my first team. I don't know if you want to alternate. We can just go first team,
Yeah,
second team,
that
second
works.
team. All right. So I'll start with my first team. At center, I have Nikola Jokic. I think this one's pretty easy. He's most likely going to win the MVP. deservedly so. And I think this is pretty much a no-brainer. At forward, though, I have Giannis, which I think is also a no-brainer as well. And then my other one is Jason Tatum, because there's a lot of forwards that maybe have had better seasons than him, but only played 40-ish games or so. And I think that he deserves it over those guys, and he's had a great season despite the Celtics' struggles. And then at guard, I have the I would say the splash bros of the NBA universe, which would be Curry and Dame. I got both of them on the first team. I think both deservedly so. Dame's carried the Blazers to a potential 5 seed, has been incredible this season, and deserves a little bit of MVP love as well. And same with Curry, dragging a miserable roster of the Golden State Warriors to the play-in, potentially even the playoffs if they can win a couple games or win a game or two. We'll have to see how that works out. But I think both Curry and Dame have played at an extremely high level this season and deserve that first team love. That's my first team right there: Curry, Dame, Giannis, Tatum, and Jokic.
Yeah, so we have three similar guys: Jokic, the center; Giannis at forward; and then Curry at guard. I feel like those are the three no-brainers.
Yeah,
Everyone's got them on.
definitely.
But then when you get to the forwards, it gets a little more dicey, right? You look at games seasons and some other guys, but haven't played any games. I'm looking at like Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, KD even. And then you got guys like Jason Tatum and the guy who I have on my All NBA first team at my second forward spot. Probably going to be a shocker, but we did talk about them earlier in the episode. He's been on a tear recently. Maybe this is recency bias. I don't care. I've always liked this guy, even when he was rotting on the Lakers and the Pelicans. People probably don't even remember he was on the Pelicans because that was a weird one season rental
Yeah.
there. But Julius Randle, I think look at the stats. He's got monster stats. He's played a lot of games. Really, for every reason that you said Jason Tatum's on your first team is why I have Julius Randle on my first team. And the Knicks have also been a better team than the Celtics too, which I like to take that into account a little bit. So that's why I have him there. And then my second guard, we kind of trashed this on our last episode, that basketball hour that we did when Colin Cowherd had this player as his MVP. But I still think he's been a really good player. I still think that the Suns have been really good. You take into account the intangibles, everything else. I don't think he should be an MVP, but I think he's deserving of the All NBA first team, at least for this year. And that's why I got Chris Paul going on as my second guard. However, Lillard was right, as you'll see in my second team. Lillard was right there. Luka, maybe even Bradley Beal. Who knows for that maybe first team, second guard spot. But ultimately, I like Chris Paul. I think he's deserving of it. I don't think he should be MVP, like I said, but I think first team is very deserving for him this year.
Yeah, and I'll just jump into my second team now to kind of talk about some of your guys there. I have Chris Paul, my second team. He was probably he was a tough call for sure. I took Dame over him because I think he's carried a team a little bit more. But then again, Chris Paul is coming in and turned basically like a play-in ish team, maybe an 8 seed to one of the best teams in the league. So obviously, very deserving of some credit here. Has been great this season. I have Luka on my second team as well as my other guard, and then I have the combination of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George as my second team forwards. I think both are deserving of these spots. I think especially Paul George playing great this season, and I really think he's turned some heads, and I'm hoping that he can continue that in the playoffs. And then my second team center, a no-brainer, it's Joel Embiid. Probably could have been the MVP had he not missed that time. I think he's actually had the better season of him and Jokic personally. That's just my opinion. I think he's been awesome this season, but he had those games he missed, so I'm going to give it to Jokic as the MVP and the first team guy. But that's my second team right there: Chris Paul, Luka, Kawhi, George, and Embiid.
So again, very similar. Joel Embiid, I have as my second team center. I got Kawhi as my second team forward. He was the guy I was going to put the first team, but he's just missed like 20 games. So even though his stats are his stats are good, but they're pretty comparable to like Tatum and Julius Randle and other guys who have played more games. Like I kind of alluded to with my first team, I have him on my second team as a second forward spot, and then I have Luka as a guard, and then I have Dame as a guard as well, like I alluded to earlier. But I think Curry, like I said, I think Curry is the first team guard, but I think Luka, Lillard, Chris Paul, I think whatever order you want, one of them is going to be on the first team. Pretty equal. But yeah, and Paul George, I almost had him, as you will see in a second. I almost had him on my second team as well because he's had a really, really nice season. Again, I think it's kind of gone under the radar a little bit. The Clippers as a whole have gone under the radar. I feel
Yes, I
like they're
have.
last year with all their drama and everything. This year they're kind of just going to work and they're a really, really good team. But
Yeah.
I'll let you. So my second team, real quick: Embiid, Kawhi, Tatum, Luka, Dame. So I'll let you get into your third team though.
Yeah, on my third team, I have James Harden, which probably would have been on the second team if had he not missed so much time. I have Bradley Beal as well, who it was tough to have him so far down on the list with all of his scoring accolades this season, but there's just better guards. That's how it goes, man.
Yeah.
And then I have LeBron James on my third team as well. Even despite the missed time, I think he deserves some love for how he played before that. I have and I want to put this guy higher. I got Julius Randle on the third team as well. Had a great season. Deserves most improved player. Maybe should be on that second team over Kawhi potentially. Maybe even deserves some first team love as well. And then my center could come to a little bit of a shock because I think there's another guy that you might mention, but I have Bam Adebayo there. I think he's had a great season. Really turned it up lately. He's averaging 19 a game with 9 rebounds, 5 assists. I think he's deserves some defensive player of the year candidate or some love in that regard as well. And like I said, you kind of made a face when I said him. I'm wondering to see if you have this other guy that is probably the clear defensive player of the year going to win it. But I have Bam over him. I don't know. I think he's had a great season and it's gone under the radar as well. He's really been good this year.
Yeah, Bam has. I don't think it's a bad take. I think I do have Rudy Gobert. I think the Jazz have been so good, and he's been so good defensively. I think Gobert's a big reason for that. Mitchell's also lost some games. I think you can have a Jazz guy on here, and I think Gobert and Adebayo, they're pretty similar. So I give it to Gobert. But Bam, if people have Bam there too, it's not the end of the world. And then I also have Bradley Beal as my first guard. And then I have Paul George as my first forward on my third team. As I alluded to, he could also be on the second team. You can make an argument there. And then maybe this is just a surprise, but I think LeBron has just missed too many games. He's missed like 40 games, I think. I think if you're putting him on there, I think a guy Durant should be on there as well. So that's why I just decided neither of those guys should be on here. Different Miami Heat player, Mr. Jimmy Butler. Again, another guy like Bam who's really heated up here at the right time, no pun intended. And recency bias, but he's actually played a lot of games, has really good stats, and I think he's just spot. And then I got Bradley Beal as my guard, and then again, maybe a somewhat surprise. I thought about James Harden, I thought about Kyrie Irving. Both of them, in my opinion, though, have just missed too many games. I think you got to play at least 50 to make one of these teams. I think both those guys have played less than 40. So I'm going with a guy who we trash on this show all the time, and it's Trae Young. I think he's carried the Hawks,
Wow.
and he's definitely improved a lot for all the deficiencies that we mentioned earlier in the year. And I think he's deserving of a spot on the All NBA third team. Is he going to get it? Probably not. It's probably going to go to a guy like Harden. Maybe even Kyrie, who knows? Jrue Holiday, Devin Booker, other good guards that you can make an argument there. But that final guard spot was the hardest thing for me to figure out. So I ultimately decided to give it to Trae Young just because we trash on him all the time, and he's actually been playing pretty well recently. So my final team was third team was Gobert, PG, Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal, and Trae Young.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Trae Young has played well, and the Hawks maybe deserve a little bit of love, but it's been tough. I also had a really tough time with that guard spot because I had Russ on there as well. I think he honestly deserved it some love in that regard as well. And then also Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell did or Harden didn't get hurt. Both of them probably would have been on.
Yeah,
Mitchell would have been on my third team at least, and then Harden most likely would have moved up to my second team had he not gotten injured. So. So
I think Harden
some
could
of
have
those,
even been on the first team with
yeah,
Curry.
potentially, yeah. Had he not gone down with the injury, I think you're
Yeah.
right on that. So definitely, I don't have any major disagreements with you. I do think LeBron probably deserves to be on there. He's definitely played more than KD. I don't think he's missed quite as much time as you said. I think you said like 40 games. He hasn't missed that much time. I think it's more been like 20, 25 games. Whereas it feels like KD's only played in like 10 games all year to me. And maybe that's just maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's how it feels. It feels like there's a pretty big difference between how many games those two have played. But I don't really have any other big gripes with your listing. Trae Young was a little bit of a surprise, but at the same time, is a guy that I've constantly underrated. And it's nice to see him getting a little bit of love because he has been playing very good this season. And I think it's gone a little bit under the radar because his career, he's been, I've considered him as an overrated player just because he doesn't play any defense. But I feel like he's really played well this season, and it showed why the record's improved. I think he's taken a step forward in a lot of areas.
Yeah, so I just looked up really quick the difference in games played between LeBron and KD. So LeBron's played 10, KD's played 33, LeBron's played 43. So
So
it's pretty close, but
yeah, I guess you were
um,
pretty on that actually. It's not that big of a gap.
yeah, there's still a difference though. But yeah, I mean, I think LeBron, because he's LeBron, he's probably going to make it. I mean, he's another guy. Had he not gotten hurt, he probably would have won the MVP. I mean, that he was him, Jokic and Embiid. So it sucks but I feel like LeBron, he's got so many accolades, and you should think about this when you're making your All NBA teams. But he's probably not going to be too hurt about not making an All NBA third team. But yeah, he'll probably still maybe sneak on there. Who knows? But yeah, I think I was a little worried going into this to see how maybe different our All NBA teams were, but they actually were pretty equal. I think we had
Yeah.
maybe different orders, but we had for the most part the same collection of players. I think I had Butler and Trey and Gobert, and then you had
LeBron.
Bam, LeBron, and Harden.
Yep.
Yeah, as the only, and those are the only three. Every other player we had the same players. It was just different teams or different order. So
Right.
yeah, we'll probably be wrong, but I think we'll probably get most of them right. This isn't like our NFL pick'em or other things where it's more kind of just you're kind of just going in blind. This I feel like is a little more. You can make a decision a little more easily, but we'll have to wait and see. Do you have anything else you want to talk about with I don't know anything you're looking forward to or playing with or talking about the All NBA teams or anything else?
I'm just very much looking forward to these last few games down the stretch. I think there's a lot of matchups with a lot left to be determined. So I'm just excited to see these playoff matchups. So we can start really talking about those playoffs because I think it's going to be one of the best playoffs in our lifetime at
Yeah,
least.
yeah, it should be. I mean, with the play-in as well as there's not a clear favorite. I know a lot of people have the Nets, but the Nets are banged up. A lot of people have the Lakers. The Lakers are banged up, and the Lakers are probably going to be a low seed, probably going to be in the play-in, maybe even. So, it should be really, really fun to watch. Go Kings, go too. By the time this episode goes out again, the Kings will probably be eliminated. But hey, I'll be watching that game tonight. Hopefully, they sneak in a victory and make things interesting there out west. But that'll do it for this episode. Once again, we are the Zone Defense Podcast. Chris and I will try and do these weekly now as we get near the playoff. We might do a playoff preview or a play-in preview, as well as kind of just giving recaps of the different playoff series and previews of the following rounds as we move forward closer to the finals. So make sure you check all those out. We also do NFL stuff. The NFL draft is in the rearview mirror, but we still have a bunch of off-season content like fantasy football rankings, fantasy football mock drafts, as well as team previews for the 2021 season. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify and Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and search us on Apple Podcasts if you haven't already, so you don't miss any of that great content. Be sure to smash that like button and drop a comment down below. Like I said at the top, let us know who you have on your All NBA teams. Let us know who you think is going to make it out of the play-in, who you got going to the NBA Finals, or how you thought about the Knicks this season. Really, anything that we talked about this episode. Just leave a comment down below. We love reading your comments, and we try to respond to them as quickly as we can. But that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.